Hey, if you want to hear us discuss this same topic in a shorter video, there's a link in the description below. What's up, breathing people? Welcome back to Just Breathing Podcast. Today, I'm joined by my wife, Brittany, and we are discussing something that I think is relevant whenever. This is not really something that is kind of culturally relevant now. I think there's been like trends on this topic, but it's really something that should be discussed more and should be discussed more with people when they're in these situations. So a lot of what we're talking about right now is dating. And we're really trying to give as much advice as we can. There's a plethora of books on these subjects, but we're trying to just give our perspectives. We're trying to give our advice from our experiences. So the topic for today is red flags. So what are red flags when you're dating? One of the things that I really struggled with when it comes to this is the possibilities, because people are so different, because people are so unique.
Mm-hmm.
Red flags are a really hard thing to pinpoint.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're really hard to just, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because they can come in such subtle ways and they can come in such backdoor ways where the red flag is right in front of you, but they came at it from such a way that you're just really struggling to be like, is this part of their personality? Is this part of their family of origin habits? Is this,
Yes.
what is this?
Yes.
So I thought it would be a good idea to start with truth, because I think only truth can combat lies.
Yeah.
That was a very obvious statement, but I really believe that this is the Bible, and I really believe that the truth in here is the thing that can combat a lot of the red flags that we're going to talk about today, and a lot of the red flags that will come up that we won't have the time to discuss.
Yeah.
But if you know these things, if you have the foundation of truth, you will be able to combat the lies when they arise in your life, in your relationships. So, to the book. This comes from 1 Corinthians, and this is chapter 13, starting in verse 4. It says, "Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails." And I just like, ooh, I got goosebumps.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
It's good.
Truth goosebumps. This is foundation. This is where you will have the ability to combat anything that arises in your dating relationships. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Study this, know this.
Memorize this.
Serious. No, I'm serious. These truths have helped me so much decipher, discern, see into whatever relationship that I've been a part of. Because relationships are built on love.
Yes.
They're built on trust. They're built on these foundational things that define a healthy relationship. And knowing this, then you know if you're in a healthy relationship or not.
Yeah. I remember memorizing this verse when we were dating. And yeah, like I had it like in my head, in my heart, and like just meditating on it, because I was like, if I'm looking for somebody to marry, like I need to make sure that I know what love is.
Yeah.
And I wanted to find like a safe person. And so I remember having this verse on my heart.
Yeah. And that's really it. Keep this on your heart. So many times in Proverbs, when it talks about wisdom, It's like, write this on your heart, tie this around your neck,
Mhm.
bind this to you, take this
Yes.
on, so that when you're in the world, when you're in situations, wisdom is bound to you. I love
Yeah.
that analogy. I love that I don't know, I'm a visual person, and I love the analogy of like that thing just being written on you.
Well, you need that because when you see something in somebody, especially if you're dating them and you kind of want to assess, like, where is this coming from? You really have to slow down and you have to think it through. And when you finally get to the end of it, where does it land you? And if it's outside of those things, then it could be a red flag.
Right. But at the very least, it's not love.
Yes. Yes.
It could be something that's not even wrong. But when you're in dating relationships, you're looking for love.
Yeah.
So, in the context of what we're going to be talking about, when we talk about red flags, that's the context that it's always placed into a dating relationship. You want to know and define what love is.
Right.
So, that's what love is. That's the core, that's the truth, that's the foundation. Know it, own it, be a part of it.
Yeah.
I don't know what I just said.
Be a part of it.
Be a part of it. I don't know. But let's start with the first red flag, and then we'll get into some of the nuances in each of these ones. But we tried to make it a little simpler. First one is anger. Now, obviously, that can encompass so many things. How do you define anger? I define it by its direction. I define it by how that anger is directed or where it's directed. Because there's mild anger, which could just be called frustration,
Right.
which could just be a season. It could just be a situation in life. It could just be, something that is very fleeting, that's not attached to that person in a way that is a red flag.
Right.
They could just be having a bad day, and that's real.
Yes.
We're all going to go through those things, and you might as well learn how to get through those types of things with the other person when you're dating them. Now, if that anger or frustration is now directed at you, the person that person is in a dating relationship with, or at people around them, where it's not situational, it's not circumstantial, it is directed at individuals, that's when I think it starts to become a red flag. That's when I really believe that your antennas should go up, your alert systems should be on high alert, because I think when that anger gets directed at a person, that's a sign that there's something deeper under the surface of that person's heart and emotions going on.
And I think it's important too, and you can speak into this, but why is it being directed at that person, I think is also important.
Yeah.
Just because I think of, this isn't a dating relationship, but I think of my kids, and I'm not saying this is the right way I should respond, but sometimes I respond in anger, not because I want to hurt them, but because I'm afraid that they will get hurt or that they're going to hurt their other sibling.
Right.
And so kind of assessing like, okay, was that anger directed because they want to hurt that person, or were they afraid in that moment?
Right.
And they acted out of like to protect, even though that's not the right way to respond.
Sure.
But I think though, like keeping your eye out for that, like when you see that burst of anger, I mean, that's not healthy in itself, but was it to hurt? Like you're saying, was it directed to cause pain on purpose? Or was it like, oh no, like I'm angry at you because you could have fallen off the cliff. Like I could have lost you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, you do need to, the alert systems need to go up, and then you need to investigate.
Yeah.
There are some that are just going to be obvious,
Right.
where you're just like, okay, I'm out. Most red flags, though, are not obvious and do require some type of investigation. So the proper thing is not to ignore it. The proper thing is to investigate.
Yeah.
So when something like that comes up, like you're saying, there's underlying emotions that are usually the cause of any type of outburst, any type of angry outburst or reaction. There's fear. That's a huge one, like you're saying. But it could be both a negative or positive fear reaction. Like you said, there's the fear that's protective, and then there's the fear that is based in more of a other underlying issues.
Selfishness. Yeah.
Fear of loss, fear of I don't know. That fear is so encompassing of so many parts of our lives.
Right.
So many negative emotions in our lives. So that's something to look out for. They also could be sad about something. And man, would that be awesome to identify early in the relationship. Not that you're the person to fix that part of their lives, but maybe it is something that you guys could grow and work through together. And
communicate through that. Figure out what's going on, because that's going to be another way that is this person open? Are they able to notice their own anger and work through it? Right. Are they willing to notice their own anger and work through it?
Right.
When you said it's important not to ignore it, I think that's really key. When you notice anger, I feel like the temptation, maybe this is just for girls, but the temptation is to just be like, oh, that's okay. Or like that, that doesn't happen that often, or that won't happen again.
Yeah.
Or they just like an easy dismissal because you really like this person.
Yeah.
And you want this to work out. So just like, you just dismiss it. Like, that is not safe.
Yeah.
Like, don't do that. Like, notice it. It doesn't mean you have to not like the person right away, but like you said, investigate, find out, so that you know what's going on and you can.
Honestly, dating is investigation.
That's true. That's
like,
true.
We have a wrong perspective. We think dating is for love, or dating is for, all the things that we talked about last time, companionship and having that partner in my life. And no, you're investigating that person to see if they would be a worthy companion, partner, marriage, spouse
of your love for the rest of your life.
Yeah. There's investigation is kind of the central goal.
Yes.
Or strategy in a dating relationship.
And like, on that note, I feel like it's important to say, like, when we are talking about red flags, this is for like we said, this is for the purpose of dating somebody to marry them. So these red flags just mean this person isn't the person that I should marry, right? This person could hurt me. This person is not somebody that I want to commit my life to. And so you might see these red flags in somebody else, which is that you're not pursuing in marriage, or to marry. And that's good to just know, like, maybe I can't share certain things with that person, or that's good to know. But like, when we're talking about red flags for the purpose of dating for marriage, it's because it is an investigation. And you want to know, are these things that I notice something that are normal that we can work through? Because everyone knows they have their own issues that they're working through. Or is this something that is going to continue to get worse?
Right.
And that they need to work on before they're in any relationship.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, because going back to anger, is this anger directed at individuals? If that person is speaking to a waiter in a way that you wouldn't want to be spoken to, for sure they're going to speak to you that way in the future. And honestly, thinking even further down the road, they're going to speak to your kids that way. This relationship is not just about you. Yeah. It's also, you have to think of, is this person someone that can father or mother my future children?
Yes. And that's really important, because I can say that whatever issues, especially if it's anger, whatever issues you have now, and even the issues you don't know that you have now, when you have children, they are going to be found and drawn out and laid bare.
Yeah.
So if you have an issue now, that is just going to get like 20 times worse once you have kids. Not that you can't work on it, but like if you're unwilling to notice it or work on it, like having kids tries your patience. It's very difficult. You learn how selfish you are. You learn a lot of things about yourself that aren't pretty.
Yeah.
And so
those kids draw it out of you.
They do. They
draw it out of you.
They humble you. You realize you are not as cool of a person as you thought. But so that's really, with anger, you really want to make sure that somebody is able to control their anger, because you don't want, like you said, you don't want that eventually directed at you, and especially not your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and just on a more obvious note, yeah, I always think of Star Wars. I can't not say
just
anger.
Talk about Star Wars.
No. It's just every time I'm like, anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Like that's
what is that line? What is the whole line? Do you know it?
Oh man, it's fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
Oh, that's true.
Which is not relevant. To this, because that is the sequence. There is, unfortunately, especially when you're in relationships, that person could love you. Mm-hmm. Truly love.
Yeah.
Like, even with all of these red flags, that doesn't mean that person can't love you.
Yeah.
It just means that you need to be aware that this is the future you're investing in, if you have not done your due diligence to investigate why this person reacts in certain ways.
Yeah. Yep.
Not saying you will be in a loveless relationship. That person could still love you and hate you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
That is a trajectory. That anger could mix with resentment. That anger could mix with fear.
Yes.
And it could lead to hate.
Yeah.
And that hate is going to lead to suffering in your relationship. Mm-hmm. And that suffering could be a quiet and just kind of brooding suffering, where there's just this heaviness and this dark cloud over your marriage.
Yeah.
Or it could lead to abuse.
Mm-hmm.
It could lead to a more physical form.
Yes.
That's very scary.
Yeah. Anger can cause a lot of hurt, and it can come out. Yeah. Like you're saying, if it's uncontrolled and it's targeted, it can become abuse.
Verbal and physical.
Verbal, physical, sexual. Yeah. That's why it's really important to kind of do your research, do your investigating when you see that, when you're dating, to really go back into the conversation, see what happened, why was that caused, what was this person's upbringing like, what was their home life like. If you get a chance, like, go be with them and their parents and their siblings, and like just investigate there.
Sure.
Be in that place where they have dinner, and, go to the family reunion, go to the family functions. Even if you don't want to, go find out, what are the interactions like here? What were the dynamics and are the dynamics now? Because that's really going to help you know, okay, I see now maybe where this anger is coming from. Yeah. Maybe you'll see signs of abuse that happened in that family.
Right.
If it was maybe between the mom and dad,
yeah.
maybe between the parents to the children, any abuse in the family that person came from is going to increase their risk of being abusive, or maybe being abused, in whatever relationship they get into. So that's good to know for yourself too. Like, if you were in an abusive home, whether you saw your parents being abusive with each other, or you were abused, it's really important to know that, to recognize that, get help for that, so that you don't end up being an abuser or getting abused yourself.
Yeah.
And that sounds kind of sounds ridiculous maybe if you're hearing that for the first time, but it happens a lot where people, if you've been abused, you don't recognize how you should be treated.
Yeah.
You haven't
Yeah.
experienced what this scripture just talked about.
Yeah.
What does love look? What does being spoken to in a respectful, loving way look like?
Yeah.
What does being touched in a respectful, loving way look like?
Mm.
If you don't know that and you've had all those boundaries kind of cut down, it's going to be very easy to bring in somebody who is better to you than your father was.
Yeah.
Or better to you than what your father was to your mom.
Right.
But they are still have abusive tendencies and you don't notice that because you have been abused.
Right.
So it's really important to get
aware of our blind spots.
Yeah, get aware
sure.
and find a counselor or somebody you just knowing that is the first step.
Yeah.
Really helping you know, like, okay, this is how I should be treated. This is how I should be spoken to. And really laying down like strong boundaries, saying this is only how I will be spoken to, and this is only how I'll be touched. And if you cross that boundary in dating, we're done.
Yeah.
Because to be very clear, if somebody is already being even the slightest abusive in your dating relationship, that's, I mean, in my mind, that's like we're done. And not to be mean to them, but to be like, you need to get help. And I value myself.
Right.
And I don't deserve to be treated that way.
Yeah.
And
I think it's so interesting to me because in this culture where there is such value on people, or seemingly, like it's talked about a lot of self-care.
Yeah.
And your truth. And, there's a lot of talk on how valuable you are as a person. But for some reason, it's very difficult for that to be realized in relationships. And I'm going to give a reason. I don't know if this is the reason, but I think it's because it's not grounded in a relationship with God. I think it's grounded. I think you can only love yourself so much.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can only believe in your value to a point. But there's someone called God that created you in his image. In the image of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, it says in Genesis 1 that he created you. And he said, you're very good. Mm-hmm. And there's a level of value when like a deity, a God, a higher power values you that much.
Yes.
It says so many times in scripture, God cares for the birds of the air. He cares for the flowers in the field. Mm-hmm. How much more are you to him than those things?
Yeah.
He called them good, but he called you very good.
Yes.
And I'm like, maybe that's the missing element where our value systems only go so deep. They only go so far. Mm-hmm. We need to latch ourselves to a value system that is deeper than the foundations of the earth.
Yes. And when we're able to do that, then we're able to treat others with that same knowledge of how valuable they are.
Yeah.
And that's when change starts to happen because more people are loving others the way they should be loved, helping them know how they should be treated.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're going to link that to, breaking the cycle of anger and abuse, right? Mm-hmm. Having that understanding and knowing how valuable you are, but then also how valuable that next person is next to you.
Yeah.
Then you're going to treat them differently.
Yeah. Or when that person that you're dating talks to that waitress or talks to that parking attendant or talks to you in that hurtful way, you're like, oh, no.
Right.
No.
Right.
I'm way too valuable for that.
Yeah.
And that's not in a self-centered or selfish way. That's a knowledge of who you are way.
Oh, yeah.
You're extremely valuable.
And I would go as far to say that if you were to notice that there was abusive, going further into the anger and there was abusive behavior towards you and you ended that relationship because of it, hopefully in a respectful way, that's probably the most loving thing that you could do for that person.
The most loving, yeah.
Because that person is now, if they actually cared about you, as hard as it would be for maybe both of you, that person is now going to take a real reflective look on their self, on their self. Yeah. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And on their behavior, and they might actually make a positive change for themselves.
Maybe.
But you have to make that decision for yourself. And we are not the savior of that person.
Yeah.
So it's not our job to fix that person. I've heard that a lot where people kind of want to fix the person that they're with because they really want it to work out. And I just don't think that's the best approach. Because all you can do is be the best self for you. And that will help others.
Yeah.
Being your best self is going to be an example to others and help them become their best selves, but you can't change people. And so keeping yourself safe and knowing how valuable you are is going to help you to, notice those red flags, notice that anger, and help you.
I think on the flip side of that too, in this investigation, if you see that this person's able to receive, I wouldn't even call it correction because you're not even at that place yet, nor are you in that stage in the relationship where you should be correcting anybody, but even receive observation in a well-met way, that's very positive.
Oh, yeah.
Because like you said, we all got our issues. We all got our problems. But if they're able to receive and at least start that journey of, I'll see if I can do that better next time.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yes.
Honestly, that's great. That's about as much as they're not going to change immediately. They're not going to be perfect immediately. A lot of times they've been alone or they've been with people that went over fine.
Yeah. And
now the buck stopped with you and they're like, oh, okay. I'll do my best to change.
And that's a sign of humility.
Right.
Right. And that's the best. Yeah. That's like a key component of somebody making positive change. If they're humble enough to receive an observation or a critique and then kind of be able to look at that and change.
Yeah. And that kind of goes to number 2.
Yeah.
Red flag number 2, pride. Pride is, you take this one because humility is your superpower. Humility. No, I mean, I'm serious.
I
think sometimes the superpower are those things that we possess that we don't even know how we got them. I know, Superman didn't wake up and be like, I don't even know how I got this superpower of flying. It's a part of them. And for you, humility is that thing that you always come back to.
Okay, so this is funny. So pride is the next red flag. And maybe it's a superpower for me because I see pride in my life all the time.
Okay.
And so it's like a terror for me. I'm like, crap, I was just arrogant right there. So anyway, so I have the ability, so I guess that's what humility is though, right?
Of course.
Is the ability to see and recognize when you're wrong.
That's not everybody.
And so
a lot of people are not recognizing pride in their lives.
Right. So I guess the red flag is pride. So the inability, so let's humility, if the humility is the ability to see and recognize and respond in a positive way to negative things in your life or pride in your life, then pride is the inability to see and recognize and respond to to negative things in their lives, right?
Yeah.
So, I just think of, arrogance as being a red flag. So somebody who thinks that they are just, we talked about value, knowing our value, right? But if somebody just thinks that they're better than you, that is a major red flag, because that's out of that results them thinking that they know what you need. Even if you tell them differently, they think they know what you want without caring. And this is like pride on steroids, right? This is what arrogance is.
Sure.
Thinking that I don't really care what you think because I know better than you.
Right.
So
Which doesn't manifest in a very obvious way most of the time.
No, I feel like it is very hidden. You have to once, like anger, when it comes to these things, like you need to stop. When you feel like something was off there, you need to stop and think about
Manipulation
that.
is the word that comes to mind when I'm thinking of identifying and being able to start the investigation into, is pride an issue here? Is pride a red flag here? I think of manipulation.
Yeah.
I think like if you see or identify that you're being manipulated, or the person that you're in a dating relationship is attempting manipulation, I think that is a sign that arrogance, is a major factor in that person's life.
If they have knowledge of what they're doing, then they obviously think that they are better than you, and can make you do what they want, and they don't care to.
I actually think it goes further than that. I think not only do they think that they know better than you, they know that they know better than you. So manipulation is just the tool to get you to where we all need to be.
Yeah. Ooh, that's scary. That's freaky.
It is a little scary. But
that's true.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I do struggle with pride.
Mm-hmm.
I do struggle with thinking that I know better than you. I've thought that about you sometimes. I've thought that about many people.
Yeah.
And I've really had to check myself. When I see myself, you will say things, you will act certain ways, you will do certain actions to create an environment that's most pleasing for your way to be had. For your way to be what we're going to do tonight for our date, what we're going to watch, where we're going to go, how we're going to act when we're with each other.
Yes.
Man, it's so easy to fall into that because you're just thinking you're doing what's best.
Yes.
But really, you're manipulating the situation. You're not valuing that other person's dignity and value.
Yeah.
And what their opinions are.
Yeah.
You know best.
I feel like that's a really good example. Because when I think of, because I'm a visual person too. So I think of it like in two extremes, right? Even though the humility extreme is the best option.
Yeah.
But so if you've got two humble people dating each other, right? They're going to have open dialogue, open communication, able to hear out each other's wants and desires and needs, and then value each other and have a balance in doing what each other want, right?
Yes.
So they're able to recognize you are a different individual than me, and I value that. And so I value your opinion, and I want to know what it is. And because of your difference in opinion, maybe we'll just do it a little bit differently than I had planned.
Right.
And that same person should have the mutual way of thinking about it. Where on the flip side, if there's two prideful people or one prideful person, that person, like you said, might be manipulating because they're thinking, this is what I think and I'm right. So this is how it's going to go. And some red flags of what that might look like, while you're dating is to kind of disregard, like we said before, your emotions, your thoughts, your opinions, your desires, your wants, just kind of like okay, but this is better. Or you wanted this, but we're going to do this because that's better.
Yeah.
And I know I know better than you.
Yeah.
And that was a really stupid idea that you had.
Yeah.
Because this is how you do it. You know, like this kind of always putting the other person down because their way is right and good. That's arrogance. And that's a red flag, because somebody who's unable to see that they're doing that in the first place, even if same thing, if you point that out to them, check their response. Are they like, oh, never realized that before? Or,
because I do think that would be predominantly the response.
Right.
I think so many of us just live our lives.
But that would be a humble person's response, right?
Sure.
Somebody who either says or has the ability to humble themselves, right?
Right.
Is able to say, oh, I didn't notice that. Like you said, because they really don't know. And that's the beauty of marriage once you get married, is that you just continue to make each other better, right? Or that they say, you know what, I did realize I was doing that, and you're right, like that was wrong.
Right.
And then see if they change their ways. Or major double red flag, they're like, what's wrong with you? And they have a combative response. Then okay.
Right.
There's no humility there.
I didn't do that.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's tough. It's tough. I feel that one. I mean, that literally just happened the other night.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking about something. My go-to when I'm not rested, when I'm not, my God tank is not full, when I just go to default settings.
Right.
It's, let me just control this situation.
Yeah.
Let me, I'm just going to, I'm just going to make the decision.
Right.
And that's not including the other person that's in this relationship.
Right.
That's the goal.
Mm-hmm.
That's that's what we're actually aiming towards, is to have both parties in this relationship. Because without that, you don't have one.
Right.
And that's really the goal when looking at pride in the other person, is to make sure you're going to have a 2-person relationship.
Right.
If not, it's going to be one-sided.
Yes.
And you don't want to be subservient to the other person for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Not fun.
That's not good for you or for them.
It's not good for them.
Yeah.
I really think that's a good point, because it's not good for them.
Yeah.
They need you.
Yes.
They need you.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
I think that's this is the tiniest tangent. But I think that's one of the beautiful things about marriage. And one of the things that you want to keep in mind when you're investigating is that marriage is not like you get married and then it's happy ever after. It's not like everything's perfect now because you got married. It's like you both get better now because you're married. And so now this person's strengths are going to help you notice your weaknesses or where you're wrong. And the other person's strengths is going to help you be stronger in your weaknesses and point out when you did something wrong so you can get better. Marriage is so beautiful like that. Marriage is a humbling experience, because when you're on your own, you kind of are just I do things the way I do them and I like that. Right. But when you're married, you get to point out, not in a disrespectful way, but you get to point out hey, you could have done this better. And that's a back and forth thing. And then you both get better together as you walk forward in this love relationship. So if that person, to bring it back to the red flags, if that person does not have the ability to care what you think and say, they're not going to get better. And they are going to always think that you are wrong.
Right.
And so there's not going to be that happy, not that marriage is always happy, but there's not going to be that back and forth let's help each other and let's get better. And I was wrong this time and I'm going to work on that. And you were wrong that time and I'm going to forgive you for that, but you're going to work on that. There's not that when there's
None
a
of
prideful
that.
person
Yeah.
in the relationship. Yeah.
All right, guys, we're going to go back to the book. This is Philippians chapter 2. This is all about imitating Christ's humility.
Mm.
If you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, that's Jesus. If any comfort from his love, if any fellowship from the Spirit, with the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in the spirit and purpose. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. That's a way better way of talking about what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Vain conceit. I know best. But in humility, consider others better than yourself. That doesn't mean you don't consider yourself, because you can't actually consider others better than yourself if there's no self to be better than. So you need to care for yourself, but the goal is to consider others better than yourself. Each of you should look not only to your own interests, but also to the interests of others. Your attitude should be the same as that of Christ, who, being in the very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being found in the appearance as a man. He humbled himself and became obedient to death, even death on a cross. Therefore, God exalted him to the highest place and gave him the name that is above every name, that every knee shall bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of the Father. Therefore, dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now much more in my absence, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you to will and to act according to his good purpose.
Amen.
Woo!
That one always gets me.
Humility is your superpower. And that's it, though. I mean, that's it. Consider others better than yourselves. Put away your vain conceit. Put away your selfish ambitions. And that person that you're in that dating relationship needs to be valued like Christ valued humanity and gave himself up for it. Death on a cross for that person. If that person is not death on a cross for you, they ain't worth it.
Yep.
They ain't worth it.
That is good. If that person is not willing to die for you, then...
And it's not hard. It's not hard, guys. It really is not hard. Unfortunately, we're desperate. Unfortunately, we get desperate, and then all the information, all the investigation, all of the observation gets lowered to this state where you're not really finding out who that person is.
Yeah.
Those standards got to be up here.
Yeah. It's like it goes back to, it's like you have to be prepared before you're looking for these red flags.
Sure.
But it kind of comes back to, like, where does your value come from? Because if you're content with who you are and how much you're loved by God the Father, you can take the time to investigate the person you're dating.
Yeah.
And not rush into it and ignore things that you shouldn't ignore.
Yep.
And that's going to put you in a good spot.
Red flag number 3. So we have anger, we have pride. Number 3 is control. We really need to be careful when people desire to control our actions, our speech, any part of our lives before we've made that commitment of marriage. If I haven't committed to you, I am not, given to you.
Yeah.
Also, even in marriage, you are a person with their own thoughts, with their own opinions, with their own motives and dreams and hopes and wishes and emotions. I'm not you.
Right.
I cannot control any part of those things that I just listed.
Yeah.
If I am, that's a red flag.
That's good.
I mean, so many of the things that we do in relationships negatively are really to try and make that person more like us.
Yeah.
Instead of doing the hard work, which is realizing that that person is an individual.
Yes.
That person is a person with their own set of values.
Yeah.
And that is good.
Yes.
Because that's how God created them.
Yep.
Anytime that we try to control that person's dreams, control that person's vision for their life, control that person's actions, we're doing wrong.
We're not working for their best good.
We're not working for their best good. And this can really raise its ugly head in a lot of different ways. One way that I see most often in relationships is this comes up in controlling how we behave sexually. I heard this, and this is not coming from me, this is coming from someone else. If that person that you're in a relationship with is pushing you to do things sexually that either you already made a decision and clearly communicated that you did not want to do, or hasn't been communicated, but you just don't feel comfortable with, and they don't care,
that's red flag.
They don't fear God.
Oh, that's true.
Because God made you, and God set those principles and those value systems that you have aligned yourself to in you.
They don't love you either.
No, they don't. No. I mean, that's ultimately, red flags are to show you that this person ultimately doesn't love you like you should be loved.
Yes.
If a person is pushing you to do things sexually that you do not want to do, they don't fear God.
Yeah.
They don't fear his wrath. Because God is jealous for his little girl.
Right.
Or his little boy.
Yes.
And so it could be both sides. I don't care. Usually it's the guy pushing for those things. But even if a girl wants to give herself to you as a guy, and you're like, nah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't want to have sex before marriage. I said I didn't want to go here in the relationship, especially this early or whatever. That person does not respect you.
Yes.
And that's a red flag.
That's a major red flag.
So control comes in so many ways, but that's the one that I see happening the most.
Yeah. And it's like there's like two ways that could go, right? There's like, it could be pushy, like you're saying, where they're pushing you, nagging you to do that, which is not, like you said, a lack of fear of God.
Right. Again, manipulating.
Manipulation. They don't love you. And I just have to add this in here that, especially for the women listening, if a guy is pushing you to have sex and you've made it clear that you don't want to do that because you're waiting for marriage, that person, they don't love you. They don't respect you. If they're not willing to commit to marriage in order to do that, they are not worth your time.
Right. Love is patient.
Love is patient.
Again.
Love is patient.
Foundations, guys. Love is patient.
Love
is kind. And that is not kind to disrespect somebody.
Doesn't delight in evil. And if they are pushing for that, they're not on the same trajectory as you. They don't respect you, like you said. They're not willing to wait. Like they're just not worth your time.
No.
So that's a major red flag. And then, so you could either have the pushy, right?
Right.
If we're talking about sexually, or if they're actually like pushy and like doing that, like they're actually breaking your boundaries. I mean, that's major red flags. That's bordering on abuse.
Right.
Sexual abuse.
Right. We have laws for those things. Yeah.
So there's like, that's a major red flag. And But then like even outside of like the sexual side, if somebody is being manipulating, controlling, pushy, I just want to give some examples and then I want to hear what you think and maybe some examples you have. But like, I think of people trying to shame you into doing what they want, right?
Yep.
That's a major red flag. There are issues that person has that they're trying to control you in that way. Like, and they don't respect who you are and the autonomous person that you are, right? The unique individual you are. So if they're shaming you, like making you feel like you're such a dork or stupid or whatever, that you won't do this, and then you do it, like that's controlling you, right? Or if they're blaming you for stuff, maybe they're like, it's your fault that, we couldn't go to this place Saturday night. So you need to you need to do this for me because you didn't do that. Like you messed that up.
Wow.
Like that's bordering abuse verbally, but like that's controlling.
Yeah.
Fear. If they're trying to control you by making you afraid, you need to get out.
Yeah.
Like they are literally using your vulnerabilities to control you. Right? Shame, fear, blame. Like they're using your weaknesses. Everyone's vulnerable in those ways, right? Nobody wants to feel like they're blamed or ashamed or afraid. So if they're using those things to make you do what they want, that is not a safe person.
I think this is one to just highlight. So back to Corinthians 13. Where is it? So love always protects and always trusts.
Explain that.
So just in the context of what you were just saying, a lot of times I see in relationships where red flags in the relationships where the person's trying to control the other person's schedule. The person's trying to control the person's friend group, who they see, who they're speaking to, who they're texting, who they're looking at on Instagram. Love always trusts. If that person's trying to control you, they don't trust you.
That is wisdom right there.
And I think that's an overlooked one, even in this verse.
Yeah.
We don't really look at the trust part, or we're just like, yeah, trust is, built in the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we also do things like control that destroy trust in relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, how can we trust each other if I know through your controlling behavior that you don't trust me?
I actually never totally understood. That's like the one part of that verse I never totally understood.
Cool.
You just brought understanding to that.
There we go. Thank you, God. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Last red flag, because I think it kind of encompasses a lot of what we talked about, is this person selfish? Is this person selfish?
Yeah.
Do they put their own needs, their own desires, their own feelings above yours? Or
consistently
above everyone?
Yeah. That will be easier to detect.
Yes, I agree. I think it would be a lot easier to detect that selfishness. I don't know why I keep saying waitress.
Yeah,
but like if you know, you're going to be at restaurants, you're going to be at movie theaters, you're going to be.
You did that with me.
Did I?
You did.
Okay, tell me about that.
Okay, so I want you to finish what you're saying then, but like
no.
When
this is good.
I don't know if it was when we were. It must have been after like we were married that you told me this. I can't remember. Anyway, but at one point you were like, "Yeah, I noticed the way you talk to the cash register at like a, I don't know, at
the cashier.
The cashier. The cashier.
Hopefully you didn't talk to. Hopefully you didn't talk to the cash register. Thank you, cash register.
That's hilarious.
Money.
Okay, yes, the cashier.
Yeah.
And that's really funny. I didn't even catch that until you said it. The cashier, and you noticed that I was like polite, like, which is funny because I don't even think about that. But that's good that I was. I'm glad that I'm nice to people.
That was huge for me. I worked as a cashier at Wawa.
Yeah.
I worked at a convenience shop as a cashier, and I dealt with a ton of people that were very, very selfish.
Yeah. And probably just not kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was about them. This purchase was about them.
Mm-hmm.
And in my next job, when I worked for the state, I was helping people get state benefits. And I remember the first day kind of on the job, like actually doing the work, not in training. And someone said, "My benefits." And I was just like, what did you say? Did you say my benefits? Like, I'm the person that's going to help you get them.
Yeah.
You do not own them yet.
Yeah.
They do not belong to you.
But they're theirs.
And I think a lot of times in relationships, people think you're theirs.
Yeah, that's a red flag.
Your body, your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
You can go down the list of what parts of you belong to them.
Yeah, that is never good.
For them to do whatever they desire.
Because that means if they're thinking that way now, they're going to think that way when you get married. And if they don't honor the individual that you are now, and they think that they can just do whatever for themselves and you're just there for them, that's how they're going to keep thinking.
Yeah, and it comes up in ways that seem maybe trivial early on in a relationship or even early on in a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when you're coming into a marriage, you don't have kids right away. Sometimes you do, but usually you don't have kids right away.
Mm-hmm.
You've gotten married, you're kind of settling in that lifestyle together.
Yeah.
And he's like, "I got to go out with the guys on Friday night." Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. You need that time.
Yeah.
I don't want to be controlling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be selfish.
Yeah.
The problem is when that becomes the pattern, when that becomes the thing that is still in place after kid number 3 is in the household.
Right. When you
like,
need a break and
I got to go out on Friday because that's what I do.
Right.
Well, yeah, but I really could use the help with the kids. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you're at work all day.
Yeah.
I'm here. I could use your help.
Yeah.
But I go out on Fridays with the guys.
Right.
Again, that's fine as long as there's been communication and mutual agreement.
That's the key.
That this is beneficial to all of us that you have that time.
Right.
Because it could be.
Yep.
It could be something that is beneficial to the entire relationship that he goes out on Friday night with the guys.
Right.
But if it's one-sided, it's selfish.
Yes.
And that's something you really want to nip in the butt in the dating relationship.
Yeah. And just to go back, like when we said, I think you had said it, like it's easier to see with other people when you're dating. I think that's important to just keep your eye out because are they generous to other people? Do they think of other people? Because in the dating relationship, there's usually like this kind of romantic stage. So they're probably going to be thinking of you, even if they are selfish, because they probably want things from you.
Right.
Right. So you're going to be treated better, at least in the first phase, if we're talking about a selfish person. But look how they treat their parents. Yeah. How do they treat their coworkers? How do they treat the waitress? How do they treat these people? Are they just kind of like, I don't care about them. I don't care about what they think. I just want what I want. That's a red flag, even if it's not necessarily targeted at you right away, because that's going to become you. Once you're old hat, they're gonna just not care about you either. And so, so really in that dating relationship, see how that person treats other people. Like it's probably a really good thing. I feel like we've been married for so long, but that I'm trying to remember what our dating relationship looked like. But it's good to be with that person in settings where there's other people. Yes. You want to see how do they react, at whatever group you're a part of. How do they act when they're with their family? How do they act at church? How do they act in all these places where there's groups of people around them?
Mm-hmm.
And if they treat other people poorly, that is going to be you eventually.
Right. And this could kind of fall into control and selfish, but if they want you for themselves and they don't like being with your friends, or they don't like being with your family, or being in your church community, or being with anyone other than you, that's selfishness too. They want you for themselves.
And they're going to make you feel guilty if you get married, leaving them.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be able, you're not going to have
opposite.
fun.
They could want to go out and do their thing. The opposite of that is they don't want you to do anything.
Yeah.
They want you at home with them.
Right.
And that could be, I've seen that with females.
Yes.
I've seen that where like they're, honestly, they're angry.
Yeah.
If the guy has any time for himself.
Yeah.
Has any time to pursue maybe even a new career path.
And that's selfishness.
Yeah.
That's selfishness. Yeah.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. All right. I think these are good. So just to review, the 4 red flags that we have, and obviously they encompassed a lot of things in them, are anger, pride, control, and selfish. I think if you can identify those things, because they encompass so many other elements in them, if you can observe any of those 4 things, you're going to have a much, much healthier dating relationship. And you're going to save yourself so much heartache.
And time.
Because you'll be able to get out quick. And we're on to the next.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's gonna be really good if you can identify those 4 things. There's so many others that we could get into, but I hope that helps just give you a little bit of a taste for what to look out for in a dating relationship. If you are entering a dating relationship and you want to see a video where we talk about dating advice when you're dating for the purpose of marriage, we have a video on that. So go back, watch that. It's a short video, just gives you 4 tips that allows you to date for marriage well and be more successful in it. So thank you all for watching. We love you all. We will see you on the next episode. Goodbye.